Why, hello. Welcome back. Welcome to Suspended Fanimation. I am your host, Dennis Patholkis, and this is Doom Patrol, Season 1, Episode 15, Ezekiel Patrol. This is the final episode of the season, and what a freaking episode we had. Wow. So before I even do anything, because I know what's going to come out of my mouth, spoiler alert, I am going to spoil the shit out of this episode. If you haven't seen it, go and watch it. Come on back. This will be a video. You can comment down below in the comments section. Wow. That's all I can say. Do we get everything answered? No, we didn't get everything answered. But what show does? I mean, you need to leave a little something for season 2. Things like that. But yeah, it was pretty damn good. As Penn Farm Girl was saying a little bit before before I started here live in the chat, talking about the opening recap. So they always do a recap, of course, of every episode before the episode. And in a couple of these episodes, we've had Mr. Nobody actually do the narration for it, which is really kind of snarky and fun. He's done it in maybe 2 or 3 of these now. And so he did it for this one and did kind of an opening poem or rap almost in a way, describing everything that's happened along this journey. And it's pretty damn funny. So if you haven't seen the recap, if you skip the recap, then go back and watch it because it's actually really, really funny. Not the final one, Mr. Roboto. What are you talking about there? Yeah, it's not the final episode of I'm not saying the final season. It was the final episode of this season. So if DC Universe has any fucking clue in their heads there, they would renew this thing like now. Like right now. So yeah, I definitely want more of this. Chief finally explains why he did what he did to all of them, and that he needed them for immortality, is what he was saying. And Jane, they're in the white space at this point still, and Jane just flat out goes to attack him. Mr. Nobody freezes everything, and Mr. Nobody finally, he says he won because of what happened to Niles. Says that he was the one that destroyed them and basically destroyed their minds essentially by doing what he did to them. And also he destroyed him as well, Mr. Morden. So that was one of the things that was never resolved in this, is we never found out why Niles went down to Paraguay to take care of, to shut down what was happening to Mr. Morden. They really never explained that. Also, what did he take from Fuchs, from Fucktopia or Fucktopia, however you explain it? Because we see it in the puppet show. We see him actually take something from that lab. It's in there. And that was never explained. We also never get the explanation of the painting that the Hangman's daughter had done of Cyborg holding all the dead people in his arms. And that was all of Cyborg's. That was Vic's motivating factor for not going, because he didn't want to kill all of them. And we never got that kind of closure from that either. But again, like I said, it didn't need it, because you need to have something left over for season 2 and season 3 and hopefully season 4 and 5 as well, because that's what this show needs. This show needs a bit of room to stretch its legs and run, especially if we're going to be getting stuff like what we got in this episode. I mean, we flash back to 1961, the ant farm, and we see Niles actually there. He's working there. We see Joshua Clay, who we last saw with the old Doom Patrol, the geriatric ones, taking care of them. And he's telling Niles about the space anomaly and how it's just on track for Larry's trip, which is going to burn the shit out of Larry, is what he says. He's going to become radioactive. And Niles knows about this and is okay with it because he's working on something called the Immortus Initiative. And yeah, it's really kind of fucked up. I mean, we also see Larry and Rita disappear. So everyone had disappeared in the white space. Mr. Nobody had made everyone disappear, and even Chief. He actually released them from the white space, like he said he was going to. And we see Larry and Rita trying to live their lives like they were doing before. They had moved out of the mansion. They're doing their own thing. Rita's teaching high school drama, and Larry is just trying to get a handle on the entity. What's going on with that. And we're bouncing around through time here as well because we're getting some explanations about what Chief had done. Something that this is all Chief's story on this episode, and also wrapping everything up at the same time. And they still did it in 56 minutes, if I remember correctly, 55 or 56 minutes. So they still did Chief's story on top of, his earlier story about his background, but his motivation behind everything for the Immortus initiative, and also finished off the story as well for the season, which, looking back on it, it's kind of miraculous how they did this. This is actually good story writing. If you haven't seen this kind of story writing before, this is what good story writing is supposed to be. And as Mr. Nobody says, real premium cable shit. That's what this is. This is real premium cable shit. Where is Flex in all this? He wasn't there because so let me get to that, Mr. Roboto. I'll get to that in just a second. We also go to 1976 and we see Doom Manor with Rita, Larry, and Chief all playing Monopoly, and it's New Year's Eve, and Forsyth comes by for him to sign papers for Jane. So Jane is going to be his new test subject, of course. That was something that he wanted years ago, and they finally found her and brought her in. Jane, in the meantime, in the now, or the 6 months after all this stuff has happened, confronts Joshua about what Chief did to her, and if he knew about it. And he did know about it, but says, hey, wait a minute. There is a drug that Chief had. It's an opiate for metahumans that will take the edge off and will bring everything to clarity, essentially. And he says, but we need to do it in doses, and you need to be monitored while you're doing it. And she steals it from him and shoots herself up with it, essentially trying to kill herself. And we see all of her personalities walking out to the memory of the lake and all laying down the field. And the last one, of course, is Kay coming out, and she apologized to Kay, and Kay goes, no, this is actually better. This is what we need to do. So it's really damn good, man. I mean, they the way everything gets tied together. We even get some tying in with Cyborg, and we find out what Cyborg's parents' relationship is with Niles. And we see in 1988, Chief is actually crying over Cliff's brain, and Eleanor walks in, who is, of course, we know is Silas's wife at this point and Vic's mom. And he's crying over what happened to Cliff, that Cliff had to die. The way Cliff died wasn't supposed to happen that way. He was supposed to die on a test track, not with his family. He wasn't supposed to take his wife with him and also have the daughter in the car. And he tells her everything, which is what leads to them splitting up. He was her mentor and he was also her lover, and they were together. And yeah, so that's kind of fucked up, at that point too. And we see Cliff. I mean, we bounce back to Cliff. He's grabbing some food from a food truck, giving it to. He's laying outside the van that Jane is sleeping in. Jane might be dead in too. We don't know, for that matter. She's just basically shooting up at this point. Yeah, Kiljani, I agree with you. Silas did kill it this episode after his wife died. That whole thing of him coming out of surgery covered in blood. Niles also covered in blood, still sitting in his wheelchair too, and covered in blood. And Silas talking about just having to let his wife go. And then Chief saying, you know what, at this point you need to show some compassion. That's what your son's going to need now, compassion. And Silas basically just fucking slaps him in the face. He goes, well, you were fine when I talk about compassion. Eleanor told me everything about what you did to those people. You have no fucking right to say anything about compassion. And yeah, it was pretty damn, it was pretty powerful at that point. Suddenly we're having a blue wave in the chat. Yes, my wrenches are here. Yeah, sorry, I moved it up half an hour. I tried to tell you guys, but I had originally I had left it from last week's. I had said it was 7 o'clock last week because I was running behind last week, and I forgot to change it back again this week when I changed everything out. So yeah, we don't know if Eleanor's accident was caused by her son, movie Finobi. That's another thing that was edited out. That wasn't resolved, I should say, because Silas said that Vic's memories, not all his memories are real, and that was one of them about him causing the accident. So we never had that resolved because he walked out on his father to go and help his friends. So you see how that is. There's some things that are still left up in the air for seasons 2 and 3. Yeah, we'll talk about Legion a little bit. So Vic, of course, wakes up from a nightmare being pulled apart by himself as Cyborg and all his friends dead on the floor, which is all kinds of messed up, and his dad calling him, asking him if he's okay once he wakes up there. And we find that all he's doing is fighting cybercrime. He's given up doing any physical fighting at all at this point. He's not going to do any of this. And I love Mr. Nobody. He's won now at this point. What do you do after you've won? What, as a supervillain, you got your revenge, you got your vengeance. What do? You drink. And he's drinking, and I love how he's sitting on the toilet drinking. It looked like blue curacao because his mouth is all stained blue. And he's reading reviews of the shitty show that Doom Patrol is out of the magazine, and how he's not a good supervillain, that he is not a good villain, period. And this is when Ezekiel shows up, who is voiced by the great Curtis Armstrong. Curtis Armstrong's coming back. He's almost like Alan Tudyk at this point. He's showing up in all kinds of different shows now. He's also in Happy. Of course, he got killed off there, Dayglow Doug. And now, yes, we have him as Ezekiel, and he wants to know why he keeps stopping short of destroying the world, because that's what Mr. Nobody can do. And he wants him to follow through on this stuff, of course. And Mr. Nobody, says, I don't know about that, about destroying the world. Excuse me here, flipping through all my notes as well so I can keep track of what the hell I'm talking about. And Ezekiel recommends that they bring in somebody from the outside. And he goes, well, who do you have in mind? And he says, Admiral Whiskers. I love that guy. So they bring in Admiral Whiskers, and Admiral Whiskers says, up, what's going on? In his little squeaky voice that he's got going on. And they decide for the three of them to form the Brotherhood of Dangerous Animals. Yeah. And then the world shall be ours, as Mr. Nobody says. And Ezekiel says, and then we will destroy it. Maybe, if there's time. That was one of the things that made me laugh. I mean, it was just the kind of offhanded, maybe if there's time. And yeah, I mean, he can get anything instantly. And that's the whole thing is that's Mr. Nobody also said, this is my favorite timeline. So obviously he's seen different timelines of what's been going on. It was after he got Chief to confess. So obviously there's other timelines where he hasn't gotten Chief to confess and had to do other things. We don't know what that is. So I get some of the Immortus Project. Harry Lady almost seemed immortal, so maybe their daughter was too, but still a mystery why the super people are immortal. Yeah, exactly. Like I said, not everything is answered in this finale that we had. They left a lot of things on the table, so you have some meat for the second season and the third season, and so far and so forth. And I'm hoping that's what we get. I love how Larry wakes up to a passed out drunk Rita, laying on the table there, saying that she was emotionally assassinated by a 13-year-old. And that's when they start hearing the disembodied Chumbawamba music. And they're like, no, the neighbors moved out months ago. And maybe the old man outside heard it. And he's like, hear what? She goes, "Nothing." And he basically says, "Fuck you, Ginger," which I thought was pretty damn funny. I don't know why. It just was. It was a little weirdness aside, and it made me laugh that they have this old guy sitting outside in a lawn chair with a baseball bat on his on his lap. And he's just basically an old man on his lawn chair on his lawn outside, which was pretty damn funny. He's angry all the time. Yeah, fuck you, Ginger. Oh God. And so we see Jane waking up too, and people are all waking up, and we see that her doctor personality, of course, comes up to her and tells her forgetting isn't healing. Forgetting and hiding isn't healing, is what she tells her. And we see that Kay has forgotten not to go near her father, the memory of her father. And so, of course, that was the whole thing of her having all these multiple personalities in her head, was to protect the child. They were supposed to protect Kay. That was the reason why she invented all these different personalities, was to protect her. And now Kay has forgotten about that, and of course she has to come back. And of course, when she does come back, she's kind of pissed at Cliff at first, because first she realizes he's the one who's been leaving all the cold food outside, which of course it was hot when he brought it to her. But then they're hearing the Chumbawamba music, and she's like, do you want to go and kick the ass of whoever's playing that music? And Cliff's like, yeah, that's been playing since this morning. So they decide to go and take care of that as well. Oh my God. So when they do finally show up to Doom Manor, like everyone shows up to Doom Manor because they've all heard the same music, and they're like, yeah, we all hear it. Okay, let's get inside and find out what the fuck is going on. And of course, they see Chief sitting there, and Chief covers up a painting and the music muffles, which is kind of interesting. And they want to know what the hell, why he called them all in there, why they didn't. He goes, it wasn't me, it was Mr. Nobody. And Cliff's like, finally we find out what happened was that Mr. Nobody has taken Danny and Chief's daughter. Chief's daughter has been living with Danny and has been her guardian all this time. That's the reason why Danny knows Chief, why Danny is so important to him as well. And Mr. Nobody has trapped Danny and his daughter in this painting that is sitting there currently. And he wants their help one last time to help them get, Danny and his daughter back. And Cliff says, you know what? He goes, I'll do it. If you invent a time machine, go back 30 years and get the 30 years that I missed with my daughter back. He goes, until then, fuck you now and forever. And he goes to walk out, which I thought was admirable of Cliff, because Cliff is the one that usually brings everyone else on board. But this time it was Jane. Jane turned around and goes, you know what? I'll do it. I'll do it for Danny and your daughter. Fuck you forever. Exactly, Marks. That's what he says. Fuck you forever. And everyone else chimes in. And finally, Cliff's like, fuck, I don't want to be the asshole, you know? So he says, we're going to do it. We're going to go into the fucking painting. And he's just dropping F-bombs like mad. And I love that scene. I mean, that's what fuck you forever means exactly. And it's a beautiful scene. I mean, it is a beautiful scene. So they go, okay, what do we need to do? And Chief basically pulls back the cover over the painting, goes, we just stare at the painting. And they get into the painting and they're on Danny the Street. And they're like, where the hell is everybody? And a newspaper slaps Cliff in the face, and he pulls it down, looks at it, and reads it. And it's Danny communicating, saying that Flex took all the people out of the town, out of Danny, and he saved them all. So we never get to see Flex in this episode, but Flex was doing his job that he needed to do anyway and save some people. Oh, and by the way, I loved what Jane also said to Chief. She said initially when they first saw it was him, says, personally, I'd rather stick sharks up my vagina than be in the same zip code as you. Which yeah, that was pretty damn funny. It was just something I had to write down. So Chief says that his daughter is inside the doll hospital down the stairs, and that's where his daughter is. And just before they can go to the doll hospital, we see a giant Ezekiel show up spouting scripture and basically that he's going to destroy everything. And he's gotten a little bit power hungry, of course. So they go running. Um, Cliff, of course, we also see a giant Admiral Whiskers as well. And my God, um, giant Admiral Whiskers eats Cliff. Cyborg takes a couple shots at Admiral Whiskers, of course, then has to go running because, yeah, nothing's working at this point. And so everyone splits up and they're going into the Perpetual Cabaret where they see that the Beard Hunter is left. So the Beard Hunter was the one that brought Mr. Nobody, uh, who gave Mr. Nobody the location of Niles' daughter. And basically, Mr. Nobody had tempted him with bags of beard clippings from Lincoln, Da Vinci, and ZZ Top. And they were delicious, as he said. So he was the only one left out of everybody other than Mr. Nobody. And Mr. Nobody doesn't have his powers anymore. In fact, well, he does have his powers but they're kind of muted a little bit in this reality because Niles' daughter also has powers. She's special. And she is the one that made Admiral Whiskers as big as he is. And also Ezekiel as well. Basically stripping him of his powers. And of course, those guys decided to dump Mr. Nobody out of the group. Poor Mr. Nobody. Every single time he tries to join a group of, a brotherhood in some way, he gets knocked out, of the group. He gets denied. So, yeah, we have Jane going down to the doll hospital to go and find Chief's daughter, while the other guys have a little bit of a of a plan going on. Actually, Cyborg has a plan to get this stuff going here. And in the meantime, Mr. Nobody and Rita are drinking in the bar and lamenting about how they both got taken down by children. How Mr. Nobody got taken down by Niles' daughter, and of course, Rita got taken down by a 13-year-old. But they need to do better, as she puts it. And she goes, "You need to take up your narrative again, and you need to tell a tale that will be told over and over again, and it'll be a great comeback," is what she says, which was interesting. So Mr. Nobody ends up he starts narrating again and convinces Ezekiel that he's God, that he is the God, and will devour the world, starting with Cyborg. Yeah. So he devours Cyborg, and Cliff is inside Admiral Whiskers, just kind of pissed off, saying, "What did he do to deserve this?" And Admiral Whiskers is talking to him, can hear him inside, and says, "You killed my mother, you fucker." And he goes, "Well, yeah, besides that." And, he goes, "I don't deserve this." And he's like climbing his way out of the esophagus of Admiral Whiskers at this point. Larry, of course, is using the entity as recon. That he's releasing him at short bursts and things like that. And we see Jane go down the stairs and comes to a door with something behind it, something big. We don't know what. And she starts talking. It's Niles' daughter. So Rita has to go outside and get eaten by Ezekiel as well. And she is not up for this. This is part of the plan. Everyone needs to get inside Ezekiel. And she's like, "Oh my God, this is going to be worse than the donkey, isn't it?" And sure enough, she gets swallowed by him. And then it's asked, well, what about Cliff? Cliff is inside Admiral Whiskers. So Mr. Nobody starts doing the narrative about how Ezekiel's hunger has now turned to Admiral Whiskers, and it's a sexual hunger is what it is. And we have a giant rat and a giant cockroach start making out, which is disturbing on all kinds. Trust me, I was actually thinking about using that as a thumbnail at one point. I was like, I don't know if I want to use this. So of course I stuck Mr. Nobody on the toilet there, with Ezekiel and Admiral Whiskers instead. And Cliff has climbed up so far the esophagus that he can run from Admiral Whiskers' mouth into Ezekiel's mouth. Again, I can't make this shit up. It's something that needs to be watched to be believed. It is awesome and also terrifying and disgusting all at the same time, but pretty fucking funny too, and wrong on a lot of levels. And that you can get this in a show and still have a lot of depth to it, a lot of heart to it, and a lot of fun. That's what you're missing in a lot of shows now, is just the fucking fun. There we go. Ah, yeah, I hope your face gets fucked by a weed whacker. Ah, that was a good line. I forgot about that one. So everyone now is inside Ezekiel except for the beard hunter. Yeah. So we don't have Ernest in there, and of course we don't have Mr. Nobody. And he brings us up at the end. He goes, wait a minute. Everyone else is inside Ezekiel. What about us? And Mr. Nobody's like, oh shit. And that's when Ezekiel explodes and in a bright white light. And we also Jane of course is in there, and Niles and his daughter as well. We don't see them getting eaten, but we know that they've gone in because Niles said, let's go see what the inside of a cockroach looks like, is what he told her. So Ezekiel explodes, and we go back to room to Doom Manor. We see it outside, and there's a single brick that says Danny Brick Company, which is of course from Danny. And Ezekiel comes fluttering down to normal size, and he starts boasting about how that radiation can't kill him. He's been around for centuries, of course, and he will still stay on. And all of a sudden, he grabs his stomach, like, oh, and we see his stomach get slit open, and he goes down, and out come the teeny tiny versions of. Oh, and I forgot one thing. So the reason everything exploded was that Larry actually unwraps his hands. He finally gets a little bit of control of his powers there, where he can unwrap his hands and he unmakes that reality. He sticks his hand through that reality, making it explode. That's how you get the explosion happening. And so everyone is inside Ezekiel except for Larry, because Larry had to pull that whole thing apart. He ends up, we see that Chief, Jane, uh, Cliff, everybody that's been inside Ezekiel are all small. They're tiny because of course they've come out of the abdomen of a cockroach. And Chief decides that's the best time to introduce his daughter, Dorothy. And her name is Dorothy Spinner, is her name. All we see is the back of her head, which is pigtails, and she's wearing a little blue frock dress, and that's all we see. And then we see Larry, his normal size, and he goes, we're going to need to do something about this, because before we have any more introductions to your daughter, maybe we should hold it until we fix this first. Yeah. And as he picks up the brick, we see Ezekiel's body fall away. He's taking him back to Doom Manor. We pan over to the tree where Jane had been doing most of her painting, and we see the blank canvas with two figures left on it. And it's, of course, Ernest and Mr. Nobody. They're trapped on the canvas, which is a painting now at this point of just them there. And that's how we leave off the episode and the season. And I was like, damn, that was actually really good. I mean, it was crazy. There was no way in hell I was ever going to come up with how this was going to end. And this is easily a 9 out of 10 for me. This whole series, easily. And yeah, it's as good as Legion. I will say that as much. Yes, the Cypress Hill song at the end. More excited. That Cypress Hill song was awesome. Yeah. And does kind of set the tone for what hopefully we're going to see next season. I definitely want to see a next season on this. They better not pull, something fucking stupid and say, oh, no, we're not going to do, we're not going to do a season 2. No. But yeah, it's definitely as good as Legion. And as well written as well. I mean, I will even go so far as to say this is a little bit better written than Legion. And I love Noah Hawley's writing, trust me, but I'll say this is a little bit better written than Legion, just because of the complexity of all these different characters. And I mean, we know these characters like we know people that we've met, that we've been hanging out with and drinking with and commiserating with and things like that. I know it's heresy, Marks, but it's true. And this is more accessible than Legion. You're right, Viking Bitch. It is much more accessible than Legion. Legion is more cerebral, mindfuck, and interpretive, I guess you could say. Very much more interpretive. Whereas this is much more literal with some really whacked out shit that's happening that happens to happen. And, even Cyborg said it. He goes, weird shit's going to happen. And, that's who better to do any of this weird shit but us, is what he says. Slurmy Scott says, just checked, and there are several rave reviews up. Critics love the episode. Showrunner says he has lots of good stuff planned if he gets a second season. And yes, the showrunner, by the way, is Jeremy Carver. He was on Supernatural at the same time that Ben Edlund was on there as well. He is a great showrunner and in great hands, obviously in great hands. And I want to see more from him. I definitely want to see more from him. Filthy News says, I found Legion way too boring. Man, give it a chance. I'm telling you, the second season kicks in really hard. Excuse me. Viking Bitch says, I know I said I wanted 5 seasons, but now I want 6 seasons in a movie. Yeah. I can understand, Filthy. If if it's not jiving with you, it's not jiving with you. That's pretty much how it is. I have a lot of shows that do that with me as well. That a lot of people love it, and I can't get into it at all. And it does happen. So, I mean, look, there's a lot of people that disagree with me on the Orville. There you go. So I liked the first season. The second season just left me cold. I don't know what it was. But you taking off, Kill Johnny? Thank you. Have a good time at work. Hopefully it's not long, and hopefully it's not boring. So, yeah. Yeah, see, Filthy, it just left me cold. That's all. We're going to agree to disagree on that one. I'm not going to argue whether, it's good or not. It's all subjective, honestly. And this is a good season. I mean, this is so good, so well written with fleshed out characters. If Diane Guerrero does not get any kind of award nomination for this season, then fuck whatever awards that are out there. See you, Mr. Roboto. Thanks for joining. Yeah, she really needs to get something for what she did in this series. I mean, really good stuff. Really good stuff. She's a standout for me in this whole season. I mean, yeah. I mean, Brendan Fraser was good in it as well, but she just knocked it out of the park completely. Yeah. Especially just playing all these different characters too, as herself, and then also having other actors having to portray those characters in her mind and basing it off of what she's done, or if she was basing it off of what they've done. I don't know in what order they had actually filmed it. So yeah, there needs to be a lot. I mean, he's given to her, definitely, Viking Bitch. Yeah, I have to go back and rewatch this whole season all over again, because this was just watch it from beginning to end. And it's one big long story that is awesome and fun. And just, yeah, it's so well written and just so well realized, and the visuals in it even are awesome too. They did a nice job on everything. I mean, really well done. So With that said, with all my gushing and everything, if you like what you see here, hit the subscribe button. Also, the subscribe button that's right down here. Hit the like button as well, which is right down there as well. If you don't like what you see, you can hit the dislike button. I just ask that you go down in the comment section and give me some constructive criticism about what you didn't like. Um, let's see, yeah, just give me a little constructive criticism of what's going on there. Some people were saying that I do too much recapping and not enough reviewing, and some people say, oh yeah, your reviews kind of suck, but your recaps, I'm doing a blend of both. There we go. Hey, are you going to cover Swamp Thing? Is what Viking Bitch asks. Hell yes. That's what I'm rolling into next. So next Friday is Swamp Thing, the 31st. We're going to start off with Swamp Thing here. It's only 10 episodes. Originally, it was supposed to be 13 episodes. 3 of those episodes got cut. And so we're now on to 10 episodes of Swamp Thing. Yes, I am a gusher, Slurmy. And it's not that personal. It's common knowledge. So, yeah, Filthy, I'm not excited for that at all. I actually fell asleep during that. I quite literally nodded off in that 90-second preview because it just did nothing for me. I thought they should have left where it was and not gone where they're going with it. So, yeah. And also it's on CBS All Access, which is pretty much dead to me. I'm not paying for another streaming service, especially when there's so many other streaming services that are coming out with a lot more stuff that is more accessible than just one franchise. Dennis is like that kid at Rita's theater class. I'm not as eviscerating as that 13-year-old girl was. She was actually pretty damn brutal on Rita, I have to admit. Pretty damn brutal. And she already got one of those Mufinobi. She's actually passed out on the couch, stretched out because of her belly is all stretched out as well from how much food she's gotten in. So no one gushes like Josh in Future Man. That's a good callback there, Slummy. So I also have my schedule up on suspendedfanimation.com, and it's also up on Facebook as well because they mirror each other there. I also have a Twitter, and I also have an Instagram. I also have a Patreon page too, but I don't have any tiers set up as of yet. I still need to figure out what I'm doing for the damn tiers. Just haven't done it as of yet. Saturdays, of course, is Saturday Morning Blast Off. That's what we've got going on tomorrow. That's where I take the genre news of the week and talk all about that and any other genre news that you guys want to talk about and genre topics, if I have any knowledge of them. That is at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Sunday right now is open until Nosferatu starts on AMC. Mondays is going to be The Tick. Season 2, I'm finishing out season 2 on that. And Wednesday, of course, is the end of Happy. Yeah, the probably the end of Happy. Or did we just have that? No, we haven't. No, we have the end of Happy happening this week. God, that's how much of an impression that last episode made on me. Yeah. So we have the end of Happy happening on Wednesday. And of course, Thursday, we have iZombie, which, if it's not good this week, it's probably going to be canned. So I've only had one good episode out of 4 so far on iZombie. And yeah, that's not good. Viking Bitch says, I'm quite sorry that Happy has been such a meandering mess. Yeah, me too. I mean, they had so much potential, especially the last couple of episodes. We've had a good storyline. It's like, well, why didn't you do that about 4 episodes earlier and led with that storyline? Because that was a good storyline, and now you're just kind of rushing things, and yeah, we're getting crap now at this point. And more than likely it's going to be canceled because no one's watching it, because those dead 4 episodes that were in the middle of the season that sucked, that everyone turned off on. So what is the new AMC show you're covering, Joe Greer asks? That is Nosferatu, NOS4A2. That is supposed to be a license plate, but if you say it phonetically, it's Nosferatu. It's Joe Hill's book about vampires, and it's being made into an AMC series. So, yeah. Or as I'm going to type it in, there we go. A2. You can hear me typing as I do that. There we go. So, we'll see how that goes, though. And of course, Good Omens is going to be coming up a little bit later, and Legion is going to be coming up later on in June here. And I'm even thinking about doing Krypton, season 2 of Krypton, because I don't know. I keep going back and forth on it. It's horrible, but at the same time, it gets some Superman lore okay. But then it's got pretty people that are Kryptonians, and I don't know. And I'm like, but then it's gonna have like a tiny Lobo in it too, which might be actually pretty funny. Yeah, I can type and talk at the same time. I can't chew bubblegum though and walk at the same time. And yes, Movie Fanobi, if you're listening, I'm covering Swamp Thing next week. I am. I am. You're driving, aren't you? You're gonna hate watch Krypton. No, I'm not gonna hate watch Krypton, Viking bitch. I am not watching hate watching Krypton. If it's bad, I'm gonna do the same thing. I look at it as Gotham. It's like Gotham only for Superman. it's the pre it's pre-Batman, it's pre-Superman. That's what they're doing. And I do want to see what Tiny Lobo is going to look like. Tiny Lobo was kind of funny. So I want to see what that's going to be like. And I want to see the the Brainiac was actually something they did right. The Brainiac that they had on that show was freaking awesome. But hey, Battle Marcus came in at the end here. You should have covered Barry instead. Stanley Tweedle, Barry isn't really genre, so it's kind of hard for me to cover that one. And I haven't seen any of season 1 at all. I haven't seen any of it, honestly. So I've seen Krypton, but yeah. Slurmy Scott says, if you're going to hate watch Krypton, promise you will rant for at least 3 hours at a time about. No, I'm not going to hate watch it. I promise you. It's going to be like Gotham. If you guys have watched my Gotham reviews, this last season of Gotham, I think I was pretty even-handed on that one. And I didn't like the final episode. The final episode was crap, but I think I was pretty even-handed on the rest of the episodes of the season. I like some of the characters. That's the whole thing. But yeah, the Gotham finale was disappointing. It was very disappointing, especially everything that they had built up to, and then to give us that. It was a Smallville ending. Is really what it was. It was a Smallville ending, and they really didn't need to go that direction. They could have given us a really good ending and really just said fuck you to WB and just done Batman. Is what they really should have done. Thanks, Stanley. Oh, you taking off? Oh no, you're coming in. Sorry, Stanley. I'm not hopeful for Krypton, but I guess it could improve. That's why I'm going to give it a chance, Pen Farm Girl. And also, the other thing that's bothering me about Good Omens is that it's dropping all at once. It's really, really hard to cover something that's dropped all at once. Look at The Tick, for example. It dropped all at once. I'm doing it because I love The Tick. I really do. It's been canceled. I know this. Been going episode by episode. It is probably my lowest watched show on here right now. Is The Tick. No one's watching it. I understand why it got canceled, but it's a kind of a labor of love, if you will. It's my love letter to The Tick. As you can see, he's Big Blue sitting right here. Yeah. Yeah, Pennyworth looks like garbage movie Fanobi. I don't even, and it's on something called Epix, which is Sony's, I think, streaming. I can't tell if Epix is a pay service or not anymore. It used to be free and used to show like really bad movies and stuff like that. So I don't know what they're doing. Viking bitch says that's so sad. I love The Tick. Yeah, me too. Mufinobi says, not that I would watch it, but it reminds me of a stylized Agent of Carter. You're talking about Pennyworth? I don't know if it's going to go that route, to tell you the truth, Mufinobi. It's going to become its own animal. Again, it's Bruno Heller who's doing it. That's what he's working on. And if it turns out to be as campy and as bad as Gotham was, that garbage train wreck kind of thing where you can't watch, you don't want to watch it, but you kind of have to watch it because it's so bad that it's cheesy, that it's funny, and it's maybe I might. Pen Farm Girl says, I'm torn about Good Omens. I want to binge it, but I know it would be better week by week. Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. Look at Doom Patrol. If they had dropped Doom Patrol all at once as an entire season, 15 episodes, would I have binged it? Yeah, I probably would have called in sick to work for about 2 days. Gone through this entire season in one sitting. I probably would have watched it twice and then done it. But dropping it week by week is so much better. It gives you time to digest it, to think it over, and find out what the hell is going on in the season, in the episodes, and with the characters themselves. I'm now moving away from that whole thing about binging, thinking that binging is a good thing, because it's really not. It's not allowing you to let things sink in a bit. It's also not allowing people to talk about it either. You go, hey, did you watch such and such? Yeah, I did. I saw it. Yeah, it was kind of forgettable. Well, did you watch it all at once? Yeah, I did. Well, I'm on episode 2 or 3, is what you're saying. And yeah, exactly. Binging loses anticipation. Exactly, Moofin. I mean, it also loses people talking about it too. It's out there, it's one and done. Whereas we've had 15 weeks of Doom Patrol here. 15 weeks. Yeah, that's over 3 months. That's right. So, what have we been talking about every single week but Doom Patrol? It's been getting more and more of an audience as it's been going along. When it first started off, no one was talking about this show at all. I mean, they were talking about it a little bit, but going, nah, that looks kind of cheesy. I wonder what that's going to be like. And after the first episode hit, it started getting bigger, started getting bigger. By the time it hit I want to say it was the 7th episode, 8th episode, they had a freaking article in Vanity Fair about it. There you go. So, Pen Farm Girl says, waited 2 years and it's over in a weekend or a day. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I'm still a proponent of weekly television, is what I'm going to say. I really am. It's the same thing with Warrior on Cinemax. Again, it'd be something that I would cover, but at the same time, it's not genre. So it's kind of hard for me to cover something like that, especially if there's some story to it, but there's not a lot of story to it. So I'd rather just talk about that with you guys when I talk Saturday Morning Blast Off, and talk a little bit about Warrior. I could talk about that stuff in Saturday Morning Blast Off because it's a free for all. Stanley Tweedle says it would be better for streaming services to space it out. Exactly. That's the other thing too. And that's why DC Universe, I think, if they start getting more and more quality shows on like this, they are going to end up being, in the long haul for this whole thing, unless Warner Media decides to take them out and absorb them, which I'm hoping that's not the case, but more than likely will be. But yeah. Mufinobi says it keeps things fresh, titillating, not wham bam. Exactly. It's the gluttony of TV, if you will. If you're sitting there and you're given everything all at once and it's crammed into your pie hole all at once, you're really not tasting it. You're really not savoring it. You're just swallowing the whole thing and then, complaining that you've got gas. Yeah, you're cramming into your rat hole. Exactly, Pen Farm Girl. Forgot about that. They're going rat hole to rat hole. Actually, Ezekiel and Admiral Whiskers went rat hole to rat hole. I didn't even think about that. Damn it. That would have been a good one. Of course, hindsight is 2020. Pen Farm Girl says, what are you saying? Titans wasn't quality? I'm going to take that as sarcasm because it wasn't. Yeah, I am definitely going to I'm going to watch season 2 of Titans when it comes out. Definitely. I'm not holding up any hopes for it at all. Yes, there's probably going to be a shit ton of dick jokes because they actually put dick jokes already in those episodes as they are. What's the sarcasm font? Yeah, I don't know. Stanley Tweedle, are you talking about Warrior? Oh no. Stormy Scott says, Penn, try and watch the panel from the Philadelphia Con. Okay, you guys are talking about. Yes, and I will be covering The Expanse whenever the hell that comes out. I don't know when it's coming out. They haven't said. And again, they're going to drop that entire thing all at once. Again. Amazon Prime. Will you ever learn? That's the reason why you end up canceling shows, man. I feel sorry for when they drop the Lord of the Rings thing that they're going to do. When that drops all at once, you're probably going to have a whole bunch of people call in sick, of course. And then it's going to be forgotten about probably the week after it drops because everyone will have watched it. No one's going to talk about it except for maybe that first week, and then done. Unless it's absolutely phenomenal and, award-winning and whatnot. But yeah. Stanley Tweedle says, well, watch Expanse one day. I know it already. It's good. It's good, Stanley. It really is. And yes, these shows should be weekly. Now I'm just turning into this, this is turning into one other kind of podcast rather than just a review and a recap and a review. Stormy Scott says the Expanse premiere is a closely held secret. No one is giving a hint. I know. Penn Farm Girl says even doing half seasons better than none at all. Not ideal, but better. Yeah, Amazon did try that out. They tried doing the half seasons. They did it with the first season of The Tick. They did it with the first season of John Claude Van Johnson as well, which means that there's another season, another half season out there. They only had 6 episodes. So, all right. Good night, Morks. Yes, binging is good for rewatches. That's exactly it. Once you've seen it, you know what you want to go back to, that kind of thing, what you want to rewatch, what you want to re-experience. That is it. Yeah. But anyway, I'm going to let you guys go. I know it's getting late for you guys on the East Coast. Again, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Take a look over at suspendedfanimation.com for my schedule. If you're still on the fence about joining up, you're going to see a video that's going to pop up in this area. It is going to take a video from my video library that best matches what you've been watching all this time on YouTube and try and match it up with some of those algorithms, and it'll pluck a video out and pluck it up here. If you like what you see, hit the subscribe button down below. You're going to see a little button up here. This is going to actually just take you back to my channel here at YouTube, but it will have all the information up there. And plus, you can also go to the website in that area as well. So, with that said, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. Otherwise, you may end up having to jump into the fucking rat hole of a cockroach in order to survive an explosion of a reality that your teammate has ripped apart with their own bare hands. Thanks, everybody. Good night.